Good morning, y'all. And as I film this, realize that we are a couple of days prior to Thanksgiving, but you will probably not be able to see this until the Saturday after. But happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. I pray that you will have a wonderful holiday together. Enjoy some delicious food and just some special quality times with the one you love. But today what we're going to talk about on our channel here is some sourdough rolls. Now, I came up and started making this recipe quite a few years ago, and it's just so simple. And honestly, if it wasn't, that would not be what, I just wouldn't do it. Because I really enjoy sourdough, as I told you before. But if I have to think too much about it, I won't do it, because it's just gotta fit naturally within my day. And so that's just how I look at it and how I think about it, and you know, how I function. So amongst laundry and chores and you know, dishes and cooking, it's got to flow pretty easily in the midst of all that, or it just doesn't happen. So these sourdough rolls are simple, and there's only a little bit of hands-on time. There is a lot of resting time. So that's, again, sourdough is you know, you got to think of it a little ahead of time, but that's not hard. As long as you are doing that, the rest of it's super easy. So what you're gonna need for this recipe is just a few simple ingredients. But the one thing you may not have is active sourdough starter. Now, I'm not trying to be a salesy person on here, and y'all know this, but I do have a little shop where I sell some of my sourdough starter. And if you are interested in some, I ship it out pretty quickly after you ask for it. And it is something that is precious to me, and I take very good care of it. There he sits right there. And if you've been here before, you know I call him Paul Hollywood, because he's my precious baking companion in the kitchen. So we are gonna make these rolls today, and like I said, I'm going to show you the step-by-step. I've actually printed the recipe, not printed, but I've shared the recipe over on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot. But a lot of times a recipe is great, but if you're not used to doing it, you might want to see it happen. So that's why I decided to go ahead and make a video. But like I said, active sourdough starter, flour, a little milk, butter, and sugar, and that's all we need, and a little salt. One other thing, as I was thinking of doing the video, these rolls are very reminiscent to me of Hawaiian rolls. Not hardly as sweet, because there's not a lot of sweetener in there. There's just a few tablespoons, I think. But and I might do this because I do have some, if you'd like to substitute a bit of the milk with pineapple juice, I think we would get a very similar result to a King's Hawaiian roll. So if you're interested in that, I may do that while I share this too. I don't know. Okay, as we get started, we have 2 tablespoons of butter that I'm gonna melt in a little, you know, just a small pot. We want to warm this here on the stove. We don't want to like boil it or anything. So I'm gonna let the butter melt first, and then I'll add our milk and let it warm just slightly, add our sugar and our salt. Like I said, we're not looking to scald the milk or boil the milk or anything like that. We're just looking to warm it. So getting that butter melted prior will help us not to get the milk too hot, because we want it very easy to touch before we add the sourdough to it, or it's gonna do just like you do if you were to add yeast. It'll kill it because it's alive and active. So we don't want it too hot. We want it just comfortable. Okay, now that our milk and butter and everything is nice and room temperature, I'll go ahead and pour that into a decent sized bowl. And then here is Paul. And I'm gonna take a half a cup from him. When I say half cup, I'm not gonna fret about that. That's lingering over there. It's gonna go in as well. And he is so full of bubbles, y'all. So beautiful and active. I love this starter. So proud of him. Cover him back up. Set him out of the way and mix our starter and our milk together. Right, now we're going to need 3 cups of bread flour. Bread flour is preferable. If you don't have bread flour, you can use plain flour, all purpose, but bread flour has more structure, has a bit more protein, and it's gonna give you a better product. So let me grab that flour. All right, I may have to refill this. There's one. Here's my scoop. Two. I've told y'all plenty of times how I measure. You go in, you kind of jostle it around, and then shake it till it's level. If you're not gonna weigh, I think that's probably the best way of getting a fairly close measurement. Alrighty, now we're gonna mix this together. Now this recipe, I believe you'll get from a single, you'll get about a dozen rolls. So take that into consideration, depending on how much you need or how many rolls you need. Just, you know, do double or triple batches if you need more. It's gonna get very stiff, and you could do this in your mixer if you wanted to, but I really like using these two instruments right here because it gives you a good feel for what it needs to feel like. So you want to get it all mixed together so that you don't see any more flour, so it's not shaggy. See, this is shaggy. See how it's kind of just broke? You want it all to come together and be kind of smooth and just one cohesive ball of dough. So that's going to take a few minutes of bringing it all together. And I know I've told y'all this before, I don't know if it's been on here or not, but when my Carly Jean and Cameo were younger, even Eli and Abram too, because I taught all of them how to make bread, but Carly especially enjoyed it because she's one of those feely people that loves to touch things, sensory, and she said that kneading bread dough was probably one of the greatest feelings in the whole world. And I absolutely agree with that. It is a really nice feeling. All right, see, we're getting to that ball stage, but it's not nice yet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to move us over to my workbench and we'll do some kneading over there. I got a lot already going on this morning. I've got a loaf of bread in the oven, and then I've got a bunch of elderberry syrup made. But to knead, you just want to press it out. Some plastic wrap or something to keep it nice and warm here. I'm going to keep it by the stove. I think I have a beeswax wrap I'm going to put over it. Just want to keep the warmth in there. And again, in an hour, we're going to start stretching and folding this, so it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth just yet. We just wanted it really nice and pulled together as a ball. Now I got to clean up. All right, so now that the dough's rested an hour, we're going to begin our first set of stretch and folds. And this dough is kind of tight, but you can see how it's starting to come together and be a little more soft and shiny. So we're just going to pull the dough and bring it over itself. We're going to do that about 2 or 3 times and then let it rest again. After you do your last set of 3 of your stretch and folds, you're gonna let it rise for about 3 hours. So just stick it somewhere warm, let it rise, and then we'll move on from there once that happens. All right, y'all. It is taking a while because the house is a little bit cold. But you're finally ready. The dough is really nice and it's doubled. And so now I'm going to begin to separate these, and I'm going to measure them out to 60 to 65 grams a piece. Now for one batch, I think I told you this earlier, but one batch usually makes about a dozen rolls. So I cut my dough in half, then I cut it each half in halves. And then, so there I got 4, so I need to get 3 rolls or thereabouts from each of these. So I ended up with a baker's dozen, 13 rather than 12. And I'm going to cover these and put them in the fridge and bake them off tomorrow. But if I wanted to bake them right now, I would let them rise at room temperature for another 3 hours or so and then bake them. But I'm going to cover and put in the fridge. Hey y'all, it's the next day and I've pulled the rolls out of the fridge and I've let them sit out maybe an hour or so, and now I'm gonna bake them. You don't have to let them sit out. You can go straight in the oven with them. But I just let mine sit out because I had the time. So here they're gonna go into the oven, and we're gonna bake them at 375. I just temped it to 350. I forgot it was 375. Until they're nicely browned. And if you ever needed to know for sure that your rolls are cooked all the way through, bread needs to be between 195 and 200, 205 to be done in the middle. So you can stick a thermometer in them if you want, or you can just make, check them yourself without a thermometer. But that's probably going to take us a good 20 minutes. My oven cooks a little low, so it may be more like 25 or 30 for me. But if you've got a good hot oven, 20 minutes is probably all it's going to take. I'll show you what they look like when they're done.